Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time long ago, there lived a poor woodcutter with his wife and 2 children. The boy's name was Hansel and his sister's Gretel. At this time, a great and terrible famine had spread throughout the land. One evening, the father turned to his wife and sighed, "There is scarcely enough bread to feed us." "Listen to me," said his wife. "We will take the children into the wood and leave them there. They can take care of themselves." "But they could be torn apart by wild beasts," he cried. "Do you want us all to die?" she asked. And the man's wife went on and on and on until he agreed. The 2 children lay awake, restless and weak with hunger. They had heard every word, and Gretel wept bitter tears. "Don't worry," said Hansel. "I think I know how we can save ourselves." He tiptoed out into the garden. Under the light of the moon, bright white pebbles shone like silver coins on the pathway. Hansel filled his pockets with pebbles and returned to comfort his sister. Early next morning, even before sunrise, the mother shook Hansel and Gretel awake. "Get up, we are going into the wood. Here's a piece of bread for each of you, but don't eat it all at once." They all set off together. Hansel stopped every now and then and looked back towards his home. "What are you doing?" shouted his father. "Only waving goodbye to my little white cat who sits on the roof." "Rubbish," replied his mother. "Speak the truth. That is the morning sun shining on the chimney pot." Secretly, Hansel was dropping white pebbles along the pathway. They reached the deep depths of the wood where the parents helped the children to build a fire. "Sleep here as the flames burn bright," said their mother, "and make sure you wait until we come to fetch you." Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire and ate their little pieces of bread. Soon they fell asleep. When they awoke, the woods were pitch black. Gretel cried miserably, "How will we get home?" "Just wait until the full moon rises," said Hansel. "Then we will see the shiny pebbles." Gretel watched the darkness turn to moonlight. She held her brother's hand, and together they walked, finding their way by the light of the glittering pebbles. Towards morning they reached the woodcutter's cottage. As she opened the door, their mother yelled, "Why have you slept so long in the woods? I thought you were never coming home." She was furious. But their father was happy. He had hated leaving them all alone. Time passed. Still there was not enough food to feed the family. One night Hansel and Gretel overheard their mother saying, "The children must go. We will take them further into the woods. This time they will not find their way out." Hansel crept from his bed to collect pebbles again, but this time the door was locked. "Don't cry," he told Gretel. "I will think of something. Go to sleep now." The next day, with even smaller pieces of bread for their journey, the children were led to a place deep in the woods where they had never been before. Every now and then Hansel stopped and threw crumbs onto the ground. Their parents lit a fire and told them to sleep. "We are going to cut wood and will fetch you when the work is done," said their mother. Gretel shared her bread with Hansel, and they both waited and waited. But no one came. "When the moon rises, we'll see the crumbs of bread and find our way home," said Hansel. The moon rose, but the crumbs were gone. The birds and animals of the wood had eaten every one. "We will soon find our way out of this wilderness," said Hansel. The children searched the woods for 3 days. Hungry and tired, feeding only on berries, at last they lay down under a tree to sleep. They were awakened by the sweet song of a silver-white bird. When the bird flew off into the forest, the children followed until they reached the most wonderful house they had ever seen. The walls were tiled with strawberry tarts, the roof was made of chocolate hearts. Around the windows were caramel frames, and the pathway was lined with candy canes. "Now we can eat," said Hansel, and he bit off a piece of the roof. Suddenly they heard a voice. "Jiminy, Jiminy, who's that nibbling at my chimney?" "It's the wind, it blows right in," they answered, and went on eating. All at once the door opened, and a strange, shrivelled woman appeared. Beyond her tiny spectacles she had blood-red eyes. Hansel and Gretel were so frightened they dropped their sweets. "What brought you here, my dears?" she said. "If it is hunger, then come and see what I have for you." She took them by the hand and led them into her little house. Hansel and Gretel were given all good things to eat: apples and nuts, milk and pancakes covered in honey. Afterwards they lay down in 2 little bunks covered with white linen and slept as though they were in heaven. Peering closely at them, the woman said, "You're both so thin. Dream sweet dreams for now, for tomorrow your nightmares will begin." The strange woman, with an edible house and poor eyesight, had only pretended to be friendly. Really, she was a wicked witch. In the morning, the evil witch seized Hansel and shoved him into a cage. Trapped and terrified, he screamed for help. Gretel came running. "What are you doing to my brother?" she cried. The witch laughed and rolled her blood-red eyes. "I'm getting him ready to eat," she replied, "and you're going to help me, young child." Gretel was horrified. She was sent to work in the witch's kitchen, where she prepared great helpings of food for her brother. But her brother refused to get fat. The witch visited Hansel every day. "Stick out your finger," she snapped, "so I can feel how plump you are." Hansel poked out a lucky wishbone he'd kept in his pocket. The witch, who, as you know, had very poor eyesight, just couldn't understand why the boy stayed bony thin. After 3 weeks she lost her patience. "Gretel, fetch the wood and hurry up. We're going to get that boy in the cooking pot," said the witch. Gretel slowly stoked the fire for the wood-burning oven. The witch became impatient. "That oven should be ready by now. Get inside and see if it's hot enough," she screamed. Gretel knew exactly what the witch had in mind. "I don't know how," she said. "Idiot, you idiot girl," the witch ranted. "The door is wide enough, even I can get inside." And to prove it, she stuck her head right in. Quick as lightning, Gretel pushed the rest of the witch into the burning oven. She shut and bolted the iron door and ran to Hansel, shouting, "The witch is dead! The witch is dead! That's the end of the wicked witch!" Hansel sprang from the cage like a bird in flight. Hansel and Gretel hugged each other. They danced and sang and ran around with joy. In every corner they found treasure chests filled with pearls, emeralds, rubies, and all kinds of worldly precious things. Hansel and Gretel filled their pockets to overflowing. "We have wondrous treasures, but how do we escape from the wild wood?" sighed Gretel. "Don't worry, together we will find our way home," said Hansel. After 3 hours they came upon a stretch of water. "We cannot cross," said Hansel. "There's no boat, no bridge, just clear blue water." "Look, over the ripples a pure white duck is sailing," said Gretel. "Maybe she can help us." Together they sang, "Little duck whose white wings glisten, please listen. The water is deep, the water is wide. Could you carry us across to the other side?" The duck swam towards them and carried first Hansel and then Gretel safely across the water. On the other side they met a familiar world. Step by step they found their way back to the woodcutter's cottage. "We're home!" the children shouted. Their father beamed from ear to ear. "I haven't spent one happy moment since you've been gone," he said. "I searched everywhere. And Mother? She's gone. When there was nothing left to eat, she stormed out, saying I would never see her again. Now there are just the three of us." "And our precious gems," said Hansel, and he slipped a hand into his pocket and produced a snow-white pearl. "Well," said their father, "it seems all our problems are at an end."